Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. With this series, I'd like to talk to you guys about fractals individually, quickly, and at their easiest level. For those of you guys out there who are looking to do fractals at the master level, I'll be leaving links into the description of each of these videos from a YouTuber named DeRoyer, who has made some fantastic and very detailed guides on the hardest version or the master tier fractals of the Mist. So whether you came here looking for a higher level guide or you play through this guide and want to know what it's like at some of the higher levels, you were pretty much covered. At the beginning of the Urban Battleground fractal, the first thing that you'll notice is that you've been transformed into a char. Heading out of the starting point, you're going to notice a ton of enemies fighting in front of you, and rather than dealing with each and every one of these enemies, it's often best just to head to the right-hand side and follow the wall all the way back to the first real objective for this fractal. You'll know you're in the right place when you see Champion Dolphy standing in front of a gate, and just above that gate you'll notice that there are 3 pots of burning oil. These pots of oil will periodically dump their oil onto the battlefield, damaging your allies, so it's a really good idea to make sure you have at least one character on your team with range who's aware of these and can take them out at the beginning of the fight. In addition to the oil pots, you'll also have some ballistas and arrow carts shooting on you, so it's a good idea to take those out as well. And while all this is going on, a few of the enemies that you skipped at the beginning of the fractal might make their way over to you, so just something to keep in mind as well. Once you've dealt with the arrow carts, ballistas, and pots of burning oil, it's time to take on Dolphy herself. Just like a lot of the champion fights in Guild Wars 2, all we really need to do here is make sure that we're keeping the break bar broken and dealing damage whenever possible. Once Champion Dolphy has been dealt with, you can then start attacking the gate itself to open up to the second part of this fractal, or the Courtyard. From here, you just need to pick a path that doesn't have a barricade in front of it. Unlike some parts of Guild Wars 2 where you can destroy barricades or roadblocks, these are permanent, so you won't be able to attack these and progress. Rather, you'll have to turn around and pick another path. The barricades themselves are going to spawn in 3 different patterns, so every time you do this fractal, it could be a little bit different. Just know that there's only one right way every time you do this portion, so if you ever run into a barricade and there's no other way to go, you will have to turn around and start again. Subsequent playthroughs of this fractal will better help you understand where these can spawn, but for now, just think of barricades as essentially walls. Outside of finding your way through these paths, there will be several groups of Ascalonian mobs to take out, but as long as your group stays together, these shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. In between these groups of enemies, you may also find a ballista, and I find it's best to take these out as soon as you see them, just so that nobody accidentally gets downed for some projectile they didn't see. Once you do make it to the end of the path, you'll know you're in the right place because there's a group of Ascalonian mobs in front of another gate. Just like before, there is another pot of burning oil above this gate. If you want to play it really safe, you could take out this pot of burning oil, or if you would rather, you could just pull the mobs away from the gate itself, deal with them, and then as a party, focus the gate so that you can get away from that oil as fast as possible. We are now in the final area of the fractal, and when you first enter, you should see a giant red circle. Inside that circle, you're going to see even more Ascalonian mobs, as well as a ton of ballistas and arrow carts. While it's entirely possible to pull mobs or just run in there, guns blazing, I find the best method is just to look for one of the several white statues surrounding that red circle. Group up with your party behind one of these statues and have one of your ranged characters start pulling enemies toward you. This allows you to deal with smaller groups of enemies, and for the most part you can avoid a lot of the damage dealt by those arrow carts. Once you've dealt with the actual enemies, feel free to run in with your party and just take out all of those arrow carts and ballistas. With the area clear, a flame shaman will join your party and he'll start channeling a large fireball. During this phase, it'll be your job to protect the Flame Shaman from several groups of Ascalonian enemies that will start appearing at each opening around this large circle. If you look around the outskirts of this area, you'll notice that there are several gate openings. The first group of enemies that you'll need to take out will spawn at the northern gate, Just like before, these aren't terribly difficult as long as you have your party with you. Once these enemies have been dealt with, the next group is going to spawn clockwise from the first northern spawn location. And once you've taken out several groups of these Ascalonians, the Flame Shaman will finally cast his fireball. Just a little something to keep in mind, if you ever do take out one of these groups of Ascalonians too quickly, a second group will spawn in the same location. Also, when the Flame Shaman throws his fireball, it actually takes out the final group of Ascalonian enemies, so you don't need to fight them. Once the flame ball has been thrown, the final boss will appear, and this is Captain Ashen. Even during the Initiate Fractals, Captain Ashen hits pretty hard. For this reason, I recommend bringing a fair amount of CC or crowd control skills with you. This because when you break his break bar, he becomes stunned, and it's much easier for melee classes to deal damage. Every so often in the fight, Ashen's going to spawn an NPC called the Veteran Squire, and this Squire has a banner he can drop that'll buff the boss. Needless to say, it's a good idea to take this guy out whenever you see him. Every 25% of Ashen's health, he has a chance to swap to his staff, which has some pretty powerful fire moves, including a giant AoE, so just be ready with your dodge every 25%. Ashen's go-to weapons are his sword and shield, and with that shield comes a powerful block. This will negate any damage you're doing to him, and at the same time inflict burning onto anyone who dares attack him. At the final 25% of his health, Ashen will sometimes spawn a fiery greatsword. Any elementalists will tell you that the fiery greatsword can deal massive damage, and so just make sure that if this does happen, that you keep your distance and try to take him out without getting destroyed by that greatsword. If you take anything away from this, just make sure to bring plenty of CC, because the most damage you can deal to this boss is while his break bar is broken. Once you've taken out the final 25% of Captain Ashen's health, you're now done with the Urban Battlegrounds Fractal. To anyone new to Fractals who's trying to complete the Urban Battlegrounds Fractal, I hope you found this helpful. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.